merry dance with the same fortunate man. You have danced with him since the music began. Won't you change partners and dance with me? Must you
Now it's working.
Okay.
So we're back.
It's perfectly.
Yeah. Now it's better. Here to talk about a
back.
book or something. What
Yes, we're going to talk about a very famous author, very hot at the moment, Amor Towles. I looked up how to pronounce his name. He's a native of Boston. After reading The Gentleman from Moscow and reading Rules of Civility, in which the main character is Katie, but her real name is Katya, I was convinced he was Russian. He's a Native American. He's native of America. He's not a Native American, but he's native-born American. And actually, I think this Towles name, and correct me if I'm wrong if you've done any kind of research, Joe, seems to be Anglo-Saxon, Irish, something like that. And I just listened to an interview he did. He's very articulate, and I enjoy reading his books. I think he's progressively getting better and better, and I enjoyed this book very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked this one a lot. It was kind of like, I'm gonna throw out the word, gonna elevate the academic status of this episode.
Okay, you can go ahead and try.
It was Dickensian, if you will, because one of the characters was reading Dickens a lot, so that was a big hint that this is a Dickensian book. So, yeah, but yeah, the dialogue, the characters, the descriptions much more condensed than an actual Dickens book. So it's kind of you can kind of, you're not just strolling along. You're more kind of jogging along, like how people do today in the modern time. Mm-hmm. And
that fits.
Yeah, I thought it was you're there. It's funny, yeah, the characters are good, so you're thinking like, okay, which one of them is the writer? Like, how does the writer know these people? Oh, he must be. So it's a book about a bunch of rich people. So already I'm hostile to like, okay, these rich fucks are gonna screw with this young girl, like how people intersect with David Copperfield or whoever. So I'm averse to them right at the start, but so then you're like, okay, well, is he the girl or is he? Well, who is he? And so the whole time you don't really know. So, and I'm gonna try to do this one without spoiling what happens at all, without so much just story explaining.
Summary. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's just what I was saying. I thought that means maybe he's a good writer. He just thoroughly investigates maybe other people who become his characters that you assume, okay, he must be one of them because you believe these characters are real people. But I watched him speak a little bit too, and he also, it's 100 years ago, so he couldn't be any of them. So he's just is a skilled craftsman, I guess.
Absolutely. And this is from a female perspective. I mean, the point of view, our main character is Katie, also her full name Katya, who is a native New Yorker, and the time frame is the year 1938 that the events of the story takes place. So she was born in the teens, or maybe 1910, teens. And the opening scene of the book was written in 1969, even looking back to 1968, maybe, or 67. So immediately we get the sense that this is going to be about looking back. So, I was wondering why he started the book with this prologue about a couple who's, well past middle-aged in their own description. Why does he start then and then go back to 1938? So obviously the book is going to be a lot about retrospect and being reflective and looking back at events in your life. And I think he did that and set the tone right away. He's a writer. He's written for a long time, but he also had a job in finance for 20 years and was successful at it. And then after this book, Rules of Civility, which is, the first sort of, it was so successful that he was able to quit his job and devote himself to writing. But he is one of the few authors that I have heard say that he's a planner. He's an outliner. He's a designer. And the way he described his process was amazing. He said he writes, the plan of the book or the situation of the book comes to him almost in a flash. He said, wouldn't it be interesting to think about this circumstance? So he also wrote The Gentleman in Moscow, and I think the interview took place near that time. So he said, I know, what would it be like to be stuck in a hotel? And the character in that book is stuck in a hotel, and he, within a few moments, he said, he sort of gives the main character personality. And then he said he writes scenes for the characters in notebooks over like a year and a half or 2 years. And when he's finished he knows everything that's going to happen in the book, then he starts writing the book. I just thought that was a fascinating concept. And he said the reason why he's such a planner, which a lot of authors, really, I've never heard an author admit that they make an outline and they make a plan. But the reason he does that is he feels it frees his mind, that analytical portion of his mind, I forget if it's left brain or right brain, so that he can be creative and imaginative in the writing of the novel. And I think that one of the reasons why you couldn't decide whether he was this character or that character is that he is highly imaginative and is able to put himself into the character. And he even said in the interview he can say things that he would never say himself. But because he's sort of, he didn't use this word, but I will, channeling his character, then he responds or he speaks or has dialogues based on how that character would have the dialogue or respond. So I think he's highly imaginative, very, very creative. At the same time, he's extremely precise and careful. And I think that makes him a good craftsman and a really, really good writer. I think he's really, really good and getting better. And so I think the best is yet to come with him.
Yeah. Yep. So what was I just thinking about? God damn it.
I don't think you were thinking about that.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. You have to, write. Yeah, how do you write? Well, you kind of start from zero and then you write something and then it's there. But that's, you have an idea and you put it on the paper and you write it again and again. That's called editing, I guess. That's the visual of what a writer does. But I listened to how Quentin Tarantino, he'll think of a movie idea like, I thought of this idea like 3 movies ago. Like while I was making this, I thought, this would be good. And then I forget about it and then it comes back. And then I'll just I'll spend time with the characters and try to understand like what they're doing. And he says, he spends time with some characters so long that he actually knows he knows them better than any of his actors do. And he's like, so when they try to change his lines or ask him, hey, what if he did this? Tarantino's like, no, he would never do that. And also also stop talking and get over there. So And some actors say like, oh yeah, they like that when a director knows, everything. So
Yeah, really understands the character and what would the character say. And I think we have that here. I think we see a subtlety in Katie. Sometimes I find the notes on the setting, the fact that it's New York and a high rise, and also at the time of Art Nouveau and things like that, a little bit, tiny bit heavy-handed. But other times in the book, there's a subtlety about Katie that's really interesting, and I think it is a real care of the character. You probably noticed, as I did, the snappy dialogue and how she and her roommate from the boarding house in New York City they sort of trade snappy, clever dialogue, which was a feature of, I don't know if it was a true feature of the time, but it was certainly a feature of the time of movies with Rosalind Russell or Katharine Hepburn. This kinds of scenes are played out again and again where they're living in a boarding house and they have this snappy dialogue back and forth, and they're just having a great time, and it's very interesting, and he conveyed that, I think, really well in the book as well.
Yeah, it reminded me of some things my guitar teacher used to say when I was 20 years ago, where he said, like, irony is the language of of educated dialogue or something like that. He said, like, you're always talking in like 2 or 3 different things like at the same time, and he said in the old days you don't just say directly like oh, I want to date you, or you should be my whatever. You don't just directly say what you want. You have to like waltz around it. And he said, yeah, even that's a metaphor. We're dancing around this as courtship is trying to commence or whatever. And so, yeah, there were lines where, I'm going to say, so I liked everything. I like Kate, but one thing that was just, a mainstay or just a cemented in point is just everyone is charmed by Kate. I mean, that's just going to happen with everybody she interacts with. She's just the favorite. She's better than other people in kind of rival or neighboring positions. Just she's like, and she does it with such ease. Just saying like, oh yeah, I'm smarter than you. Yeah, I know that. Yep, I can throw back witticisms, and I can throw out author titles, and so yeah, she can hang with all these different people, her job, these rich people with literary quotes, or even like nautical quotes. She says like, some guy puts his hand on her leg, and she's like, you better hoist the main sail there, Captain, because you're heading for the rocks.
Rough surf or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, oh, I hear what you're putting. I pick up what you're putting down. Or so yeah, that's. And I thought that was because it points out she's the daughter of like an immigrant, I think. I think her father and uncle are from Russia. And that resonated with, I've heard other stories, and even like, I think I which had made me think like maybe I'm like that, where you kind of have to be kind of chameleon-ish, where at home you're one person, you're this, you have to be in this mode, but then at school or when you're out, you have to kind of work extra hard to get in with whoever happens to be around. And I feel like that has, like, I think I have done that, and that's how I've become, I've gotten in with different people, where you have to hang and say the right thing kind of subtly and quickly, like when you can, and that yields opportunities.
Yep. So she's a native of New York. I think she was probably from Brooklyn or the Bronx, or I can't quite remember. Brooklyn. And her father, I think her mother left at some point. Her mother left when her mother walked out on us. I was wondering, because we don't have a lot of background about her. We do we do come in contact, we do learn about her roommate Eve's father, anyway, because he writes a couple of letters and he's a presence, but her family is not. So I think that's important for her personality as well. So her mother walked out, and then apparently I think her father died when she was 19. So, because she says at some point about all the 19 years I knew him. So she's on her own, and she moves into this boarding house in New York, and she enters the typing pool. She was a good student in school, right? And she's well read, obviously, and she turns to Dickens, who's a great sociologist and is good for telling you about people's characters. But she's also, to your point about what kind of person she is and how she gets entree into these groups, she's reflective and she's patient. And she, at one point, we do see her really manipulating the situation when she saw that she was going to get a promotion in the typing pool. And this just filled her with dread that her life was going to be this for the rest of her life. And she takes herself to a restaurant and, finagles a self-introduction to a publisher. And she plays a little part there with him. She plays an Oliver Twist part, about lunch and pretends to be poor. And he takes pity on her, invites her to lunch, and ultimately hires her. And so she does manipulate a little bit, and she does sort of cage any situation that she's in. But you're right about her gaining entree into different circles of friends, because her circles of friends come and go. And she does, I think she's older than some of the people also, and she is, adaptable, and she is, she's watchful, I think. And I think that's the key to her success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, yep. She's just, yeah, I guess the two things that are just a given that makes her the main character and that keeps the story going is that, yeah, everybody likes her. Everybody definitely remembers her. She's got that little some. Oh yeah, I remember you. Even though usually our classes do not, interact. But oh yeah, you're that one, and it did kind of go out of its way to say her friend Eve was the pretty one. I think it's kind of set that up that she meets this other main character in the beginning. I guess because actually no, it wasn't that. She would hang out with that friend, and she was the pretty one. So it kind of was like, okay, so does that necessarily mean she's like the clever one who the men don't pay attention to? But actually, no. The whole book, it's always guys kind of clawing after her, wanting her attention.
I think her friend Eve was vivacious. I think I would use that word to describe her, and flirty. But I think that Kate was probably prettier, more maybe beautiful. And also because she probably raised herself to a large extent. If her mother walked out, she has probably a confidence and a calmness about her that is very attractive. And she is successful. I mean, by the end of the book, she's worked her way up in publishing with Condé Nast, which is a big publishing house, and probably is an editor of something like Glamour. And so she's sort of, if you picture The Devil Wears Prada, that position of power and that position of understanding, even though she's not like that. But either Diana, what's her name? Diana Winter, or The Devil Wears Prada. She's got a big, she became very, very successful.
Yeah, that the ending I don't want to give away or anything, or even like lean into it, but yeah, I thought it was kind of a typical dream ending, but yeah, I kind of smirked at how like, oh, your dream is just to become an editor, which is a word that carries weight, but it's some kind of fashion or gossip, magazine or something, which which is hot in the 60s. Magazines were like kind of a vital part of the culture, like the
Big.
pretty much like the internet of the time.
Especially Condé Nast. So Condé Nast they had The New Yorker, Vogue, Glamour, GQ, Architectural Digest, Vanity Fair, Wired, Bon Appetit. So that is pretty much soup to nuts. Every area that you could be the pinnacle of the final word, is in those really high quality magazines. And so it's at a time unlike now where power was concentrated, right? So now anybody can have, well, no offense, but anybody can have a podcast, right? And so we are all little influencers in our own mind. But with the publishing industry, you had gatekeepers, and so they were difficult to get in, and they had power and sway. So if you think about the fashion industry now and how fashion editors have power, that's, I think, what it was like in all of these areas in publishing. And so to move up from the typing pool to become an assistant editor, that's a success story, big time.
Yep. I also, as I read it, I thought about that movie, La La Land. That's also kind of a story where two characters meet. They're in the same place, but they got different situations, and they kind of, struggle to get together. And then also The Great Gatsby. It's like, it is that kind of thing. A random guy just sidles next to a rich person and gets to observe and participate in this unknowable, unimaginable level of wealth. Also, there's a car crash in this, the convenient car crash, which kind of just okay, we need to have this go somewhere, because they're just having fun, drinking martinis, slurping down gin, and then we gotta, something's gotta happen. So the car crash happened.
And going to jazz clubs. And I also thought of The Talented Mr. Ripley. That was
what the heck? Why would you
that
think
came to mind.
Right? Yeah, that guy's
because of the character Tinker. Yeah. So I think that placing this was my parents' generation. They grew up. They would be contemporaries with these people, but not, of course, in their circle of friends. But New York City, was a world unto itself. And so to be able to just get up and go and meet these people at jazz clubs and have introductions and go off with this person and that person and enter their circle of friends because you're a friend of a friend of a friend, was pretty fascinating to me. It was post-World War I, so there was a lot of relief from not having a war going on, and it was pre-Depression or pre-World War II. It was in Depression period, but before World War II. So there was that kind of scrambling. Everybody was broke. They said they were making $15 a week, and I remember my father saying that's how much he made, $15 a week. And so everybody was kind of in the same boat, except for these obscenely rich people, but they were gracious, because after all, the name of the book is Rules of Civility. So there is a responsibility that rich people have. Well, when she goes to that party that her friend Wallace makes sure that she's invited to, the father, when he sees she's leaving, he says, "Oh, well, let's get so-and-so to drive you to the station." His son, Valentine, to drive her to the station, because they're the host. They have a responsibility, and they're rich. They don't just turn their back on people. There's a noblesse oblige that the rich have, and sort of felt.
I want to ask: have you ever had any shoulder rubbing or elbow sharpening with any type of super rich or like ultra
Super
wealth.
rich?
Yeah.
Not super rich. I mean, no, I would have to say
Really?
not in that sphere.
I have
Not in the. No.
I could say
Have you?
I have a good friend who, I worked with him in Hokkaido at the ski resort, and he was this regular guy. He's kind of, he's really good at skiing, and start asking him like, yeah, so what? He's from Virginia, and I just keep asking him, and he's being kind of like, oh yeah, we don't do much. We're just regular people. And I'm like, what do you mean? Who says that?
Yeah.
No one talks about themselves. No, we're normal, which means you're not normal. So then I said, what do you
Right.
mean? And finally he just doesn't like to talk about it, that his family on his father's side, going back his like great grandfather's side, like, or great, super long time ago, used to be like a landowner, slave owner, like 10,000 slaves, and they still have that land with slave quarters, which is historically protected. They cannot get rid of it.
Oh wow.
On their own land, and then later generations, that descendant married a daughter who was the daughter of the guy, whoever, Proctor, who started Procter and Gamble.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so that's the southern side lost everything, but the great grandmother's side still has everything, and his whole family for like generations has just lived like this, like these types who are stakeholders in like ancient companies or property. And so I was like, wow. So he just he has that lifestyle. And then another thing I thought of is how when I again in Hokkaido, I teach skiing. I taught lessons to this guy, and he was real serious and not so funny. But when we Googled him, it turned out he was a billionaire in China, and so yeah, we got to deal with lots of really super wealthy. I've skied with like Thai billionaires who are like property like lords, like insane,
wow.
insanely rich, who don't like do anything. They don't have to do anything. They just like fly around and have fun. They said, are you free how about like in April? Could you come with us to like to Zermatt in Austria? Could you ski with us there? And I'm like, I don't know anything about there. It's like, well, you just come. You help us. I'm like, what? And then my the other people are like, you should go. Oh, they're gonna pay for everything. You should go. And I'm like,
wow, that's just not even in your imagination, right?
I'm like, well, what would I even be doing there? I'm like, they just want you around. I'm like, what? I was like, no. So
no, maybe not.
and yeah, and now all those kids are grown up and they get to go to any school. Like they get sent. I got like 3 young kids who they all go to school in London. They're just like connected or are they pay money. One daughter from like China goes to Georgetown in like DC. They all just get to go. They get to go to the best things. So,
jeez, I'm surprised that they can qualify. That I mean, money will get you so far, and you can hire tutors and you can hire people to proofread your, graduation thesis. But there's going to be a standardized test in there somewhere.
they get in. They will get them in, like no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah, and international
right.
students will pay like just insane fees.
They do. Well,
and plus,
that's investing in their children, and so, I mean, it's the same thing. The story always with British landed gentry was one generation builds the wealth, the next generation splurges it, just gone, and then the third generation has to kind of rebuild and feels their the irresponsibility of the previous generation, and so they're a little bit more earnest about it. Yeah, money. These folks that she hooks up with and goes to the horse races or goes to the party or get the invitation to the party. It does have a Great Gatsby sort of feel to it, and I think it's very comparable. She does have interesting circles of friends that she manages to go in and out of with some ease, and that's the beauty of youth, I suppose.
Yeah, the other given, number one, everyone's charmed with her. Number two, you can run into people randomly. Kind of
Yeah.
like the book, what was it called? Not the Underground Railroad. What? Harlem Shuffle. You just be walking around, and someone just finds you. And usually, I'm like, okay, well, that's come on, that's not going to happen in New York. That's too crazy. But it actually does happen to me in my city, Fukuoka. Here, I'll just be walking around, and someone will just see me. So yeah, and this is a huge city too. But yeah, you do run into people, so it's not.
Yeah, because you go to the same places, or this is what's hot, and you're able to follow the same, trends, or whatever's interesting and whatever's hot that's going on. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we start with this prologue that looks back on that is a photography exhibit, and she sees two photographs actually, of someone from her past. Katie does, or Kate, now that she's older. And this brings us to 1938, this year from New Year's Eve to New Year's Eve, in which she is spending her time in New York in the typing pool, living in a boarding house, which was common, which I wish would come back. Sharing space with a lot of young women who, went to New York to make their fortune. And she becomes best friends with the girl who becomes her roommate, Eve. And this book reminded me of other books that we've read that are modern, like The Glass Hotel, and I forget the other one. But the way people are in each other's lives for a while and then separate. In this book, they often come back and see each other again. But I think what the theme of this book is, the main theme of this book is, and this is why she's looking at a photography exhibit from 1938 in 1960 something, is we can look back on our life and see the points that were turning points and the people that became important and significant. But we can only see that in hindsight. We don't know when we meet them or when this happens. We're 90% of the time, we're just not aware that, oh, this is big, this is important, I should pay attention, and I should make the right choice here. And I think that that's the nature of life. You're busy living it, and you're not paying attention to what's going on too closely, or who you're spending time with, or who's going to be important to you in the formation of your life, because your life is the total of all your events and your memories.
Yeah, I heard him speak saying that this book is just about 1 year, and it's about just the happenstance interactions, people you meet, and they make such a huge impact on you at the time, but then they go away, like different forces pull people in different directions. And yeah, I thought about that too, because I was I've got different this is like, I've been here in this city for like 10 years. It's like it's like a long chapter.
Whoa, you have. Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, and I know not only the same people, but like less people. And but I lived in China and Australia and that Hokkaido, all these different random people mixed together, and then you find out about them and then they go away. And some you stay in touch with, and some you just remember really well. And yeah, if you don't get to do that, if you're tied up with whoever and you can't do that, then yeah, you're going to be kind of a less dynamic human, I guess.
Because you'd be less open to meeting new people, you mean?
You're
something like
just
that?
like, I think another reason they liked Kate was that she was fully fulfilling her sphere, which was by volume less than these rich people, but she is like in it. She goes where she wants. She works. Talks how she wants to whoever she wants. She doesn't worry about her parents' expectations or, oh, should I get into this car with this strange man, or should I have another drink? Should I use this money to have just a drunk dinner by myself? And so the one character, Wallace, he's the responsible one. He is good at his job. He's inherited this estate and role in a company, and he has the respect. But he is also left feeling unfulfilled. Like he's like, I could do more than this, but he does the radical, like, okay, I'm severing all of that. And that's kind of what the other character, Tinker, has to do too. Okay, I have to sever all of that to find my own sphere and fully explore it, even if it's by volume like less than what I used to have. And so that's why they all admire Kate. And I saw some reviews saying, oh, this character's so boring, doesn't do anything. The other character, Eve, is much more interesting. And but she's like the classic, like, she'll never be satisfied. She'll thrust in any direction to kind of exploit as much as she can until it just becomes exhausting, and then she'll just go in another random direction. And kind of the vapid, just insatiable, take as much as I can from whoever I can. So I think and even the other women characters, they like Kate too, because they, I guess they're in this rich world and they're struggling to hold position with wit and cool grace. But Kate just, I don't care about any of that. I don't have to care, which is liberating. Maybe.
She's open. Yeah, she's open to new experiences, and she's. I think she's got this inner strength that when she dines alone and they say, would you like to sit here while you wait? And she said, wait for what? And, oh, of course, madam, come and sit down. They just assumed she was waiting to eat with someone, but she was going to dine alone. And then she goes and buys herself a dress, and she's treated like royalty. And she said, I don't know, she did it because she needed to perk herself up a little bit. I think she's got good self-knowledge. She may look boring, she may look staid, but I think what she is sturdy. And I think that she's able to experience different things unscathed. She learns from them, and I think she's reflective, and I think she's observant, but I don't think she doesn't change herself fundamentally for anybody else the way some characters do.
Yeah, almost as though she's content. Oh, what?
Oh,
that's her last name. Yeah, so
that's her last name.
She's another kind of unthinkable or unimaginable character trait is she's just not jealous of anyone ever, which is like, again, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's convenient. We are from New York, but anybody who moves to New York is kind of, I would say a little bit has to be jealous a little bit. Like, I got to get out of here. I want what they got. I'm after the mystique of New York. And she's like, well, I'm already from here, so I don't care. And it's like, well, come on.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's her superhuman, trait. And then plus, I guess there's an overwhelming pressure in that generation or other traditional senses. Like, you got to get married. Like, you got to find your life partner. That's how you really secure yourself, which she does get in the end, conveniently. I thought like, if they really wanted to, her to be herself, like maybe she just stays single. But in the end, she does hook up with Valentine Hollingsworth or some other pasty white last name who's loaded, which is another Gatsby. And she just landed that conveniently. So she has it both ways. She gets everything
because, like
she wants.
You said, you meet up with each other. It's not that you necessarily travel in the same circles, but you do encounter the same people.
Yep.
Because Val, the husband Val, is the guy that gave her a ride back into Manhattan when she left that party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's like,
So I reread that whole passage to see, well, was there some spark here going on? No, nothing. They didn't even talk. He turned on the radio in the car, and they didn't talk, and that was it. But then they re-met.
yeah, I thought that was like, why would he do that? I thought that was kind of like, you know, in the end, you want the two main characters to get together. Kind of like the La La Land. You're like, well, what the hell? They don't, what? And yeah, that's a what is that? He wants to pursue. He wants to find himself, and the guy Tinker, that other guy who you sympathize with, and but. Oh yeah. Because of the extraordinary circumstances, how they met and how long it took to get together finally, and all these like little intimate hand touches or lingering glances. Like, well, that's also funny too. Like when you're younger, you think this is so significant, or like, oh, like because I haven't held a look that long with someone before, this must mean something. So that means we should be together forever. But he's like, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. And,
I'll talk to you later.
And she's like, all right. And so you're like, what? But in the end, yeah, she chooses a boring guy who didn't really seem like anybody. Just another rich.
Rich dude, but he does understand her, because when they get home at the end of the book, he says, I know you want to spend some time with your thoughts. And he goes to bed. He knows her. He understands her. And he doesn't put any demands on her. That was very interesting, too. You know, the characters don't put many demands on each other much. They do just they're still just kind of like kittens in a box. You know, they're just kind of all over each other, but they're not forming any big, strong attachments. And that's kind of interesting, too, I think.
Yeah. Another show.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
I think we should talk a little bit about Tinker. Tinker is a young man that they meet at a jazz club who accidentally put his coat over the chair, one of the chairs from their table, and they're both attracted to him because he must obviously be stunning. He must obviously be, you know, really good looking and well groomed and obviously rich, and he lights their cigarettes and leaves his lighter with his initials engraved on it, and then they meet up again. And we find out later that they meet up again because Tinker followed Katie coming out from work and then pretended to just sort of happen to meet her. So Tinker, and one of the interesting passages in the book was how the comment is, isn't it interesting how the rich people took the nicknames of tradespeople like Tinker and Cooper. And the author finds that very ironic, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, Tinker is the driver of the car when there's this car accident in which Kate's friend Eve gets hurt. And then even though this was before seatbelts, and even though he does get hit from behind and Eve is really hurt and thrown through the windshield, he takes responsibility for her. And when she gets out of the hospital, he takes her to his apartment and makes sure that she's never alone during her recovery. I thought he felt such responsibility because he was the driver, even though none of it was his fault, was kind of unusual and interesting. What did you think of that circumstance?
Yeah, I thought that whole segment of, he's got to take care of her. Then they start, they have a romantic connection. I thought, okay, so he's going to be this kind of sad, lonely, stoic, but the tragic stoic or something. Where and then the whole rest of the book is how can I get away from her and get back to Kate, my actual
the one he really likes.
Yeah, which is also Dickensian. Some character is stuck with someone. I'm betrothed. I'm locked in, and we just have to long for each other for like 500 pages, and just wait. Literally, like 18 years go by, and finally we just like see each other. So
somebody dies.
but then, yes. But then, like, he proposes to her, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, that is kind of mysteriously like, why is he going like all the way with? I don't know. Yeah, that was, I kind of hurried past that, and I don't want to really analyze it too much. But yeah, I thought that was kind of weird.
Well, he does. Yeah, I don't know. They grew intimate, and so then he feels more responsibility. But in fact, she's chomping at the bit and wants to get away from him more than he wants to get away from her. And she's the one that finally just says no. We're not going to get married. This is Eve, and she runs away to Hollywood, I guess. And they're all relieved. They're all relieved.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know how much of the story that we want to give away. I don't think we do. But even though Tinker and Katie had the initial spark and seemed to be our main romantic couple, they never do get together. They have opportunities, but they reject the opportunity, or they decline the opportunity, and they go their separate ways. And I think we maybe want to leave that alone. We want to leave that alone because it gives away too much, maybe?
Yeah, whatever. Just we can go for it. Who cares?
Well, Tinker, it turns out, is not a rich boy. He comes from poverty, and he even though he started a good school, he had to leave the school because the family had no money. His father pulled him out. And it turns out that he is creating, this is why I thought of the talented Mr. Ripley. He's created this persona of Tinker, and he is a kept man. He's a gigolo, and he is completely financed by someone who introduces herself to Katie as Tinker's godmother. Well, she's a little bit more than that, and this completely turns Katie off. She's absolutely not interested anymore in Tinker, and she feels hurt and betrayed and all that stuff. And she turns to this other rich boy who tried to seduce her before, Dickie, and has a great time with him just as a companion. But then she turns to Wallace, and Wallace is another rich boy who's very serious. So we see a comparison of Dickie, this, let's go to the racetrack, let's do this, let's go to 21, let's have champagne, what's the most interesting book you've read at a story at the table, to Wallace, who is very quiet, who probably has a stammer because he stops in the middle of every sentence. And they're two completely different people, and Dickie serves his purpose for a certain period of time and then tells Kate, you're a little hard on this boy. He does have a clear vision, I think. He knows what he wants, even though it's not necessarily anything earth-shattering. Whereas Wallace, this quiet boy, young man who has the respect of his elders because he's stable and good, goes off and fights in the Spanish Revolution and gets killed. And so we have people pretending to be who they're not, or striving to be someone they're not. And it's a very mixed bag of people that Katie encounters. I think she learns from all of them, and I think that she comes out richer for it, but they don't necessarily.
Yeah, Tinker, which I thought was a play on that, because I've heard that, I don't know where or when or what, but Tinker is another word for like a gypsy, kind of a rambling homeless hustler who you're distrustful of or something.
They're usually travel, and they fix things for people. They're like traveling, a traveling tinker is like someone who I can fix your pots for you, and I can sell you this thing, and I can do that. So yeah, they don't have a big profession. They're just sort of a jack of all trades.
But I would say that tinker is not of the a status class of like what's the word, Cooper or Thatcher or well, all those ancient jobs. Tinker is like, I'll try to do whatever you got, but usually you turn them down. You're like, yeah, no, I can DIY this myself.
Yeah.
So
so not a skilled craftsman.
no, I don't think so. They just will take your trash and try to fix it a little bit and sell it as perfectly good. I guess, I don't know. So yeah, she has, and I guess it's to the writer's credit. Every time they interact, she describes how he holds her hands a certain way. They lock eyes a certain way, and I get to wear his jacket. It's so good. And then she visits with him here and there, and the writer just builds that anticipation. That okay, now we're on track. Now I'm in, we're in. He's the one. Let's do this. That when he is with his sponsor, this matriarch of wealth who funds his whole lifestyle, she is outraged. Katie is like, what the hell is this? How dare you? You took everything from me. We were engaged. We had a house. We had 3 kids in my own mind, and I hate you. And you too. You're like, yeah, you son of a bitch. And then and he's like, wait, well, hold on. Let me just tell you. She's like, no, you are dead to me. And then she hooks up with this younger guy, Dickie, and also I had maybe it was carried over, but how the tragic stoical man of Tinker was kind of like the Dickie from the Bee Sting, who's just is locked in, like, this is my life now. There's just no way out.
Yeah.
Who we had great sympathy for in that book, but this time Tinker's got this girlfriend who keeps him. Yeah, the Dickie in this book is right. Like, so you hung out with him and you fell in love with him, and he's got this situation, and you just hate him now. She's like, she's like, yes, and he's like, what the hell are you? What are you talking about, you idiot? Go and find out what his deal is. Oh, that's a good idea. Then she just finally, comes to, and you too, the reader, come to your senses. Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's
finally,
go get
somebody's clear thinking. This is, let's put the emotion aside for a minute and don't be so hard on this guy. He's had a hard life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wait, I was going to say something like, oh yeah, this also has another. We got Gatsby, we got Dickens, we got La La Land, we got another book by Richard Russo, who did Straight Man. His main book, I guess, Empire Falls, has a similar all-controlling, string-pulling matriarch of the town. Did you read that one? Empire Falls, the main character is another straight man, just a guy who everybody likes, doesn't make waves, or he knows what to say at the right time, good one-liners. But there's a lady who is just like, my husband used to own all this land, and before the factory shut down, we employed 3,000 people, and well, I'm glad that you're on my side, to the main guy, and he wants to get away from her. So, and then I thought that too, that maybe that's what Katie is. She's the straight man. Everybody wants to say their over-prepared, charismatic one-liners, and Kate can just volley them back with even less effort, so they're all impressed with her at every turn. And that's why she yields so much goodwill with everyone she meets.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I found it. I found it dissatisfied. I am dissatisfied with the book, but I was also dissatisfied with the Bee Sting and with the Glass Hotel. I don't like these kinds of books where people just filter in and out of each other's lives, and I don't know where it's going like that. But I enjoyed this book more because the writing was good and careful and interesting. And so I probably will. I have The Lincoln Highway, which is his most recent book. I'll probably read that. I did find I was getting a little bit bogged down in some of the detail work, but not like I was in The Glass Hotel, and not like I did with Dickens. Still, I relished the language and his use of the language. It was good. I think it was the interesting fact of the book was we don't know what's going to be important until we look back on it, and that's why hindsight is 2020. We don't know who we're going to live with in our heads for the rest of our lives. Who are we not going to be able to forget, and who's going to make a significant impact on our lives so that it will influence our behavior for the rest of our lives until we look back, and then we're kind of surprised, even though we shouldn't be, because they've been living in our heads for all these years.
Yep. I liked it. This is another one I thought, I should write a book. I thought, if this guy can do it, because it did seem like there was a formula to every chapter of exposition of describing her apartment, or and then dialogue. Got to research that. How do people talk, or whatever.
Well, again, he didn't use any quotation marks, and that was a little bit when you're, especially when you're dealing with snappy repartee, it's not having quotation marks and not knowing who the speaker is. It can be a little bit disconcerting.
Oh yeah, the other thing I thought of was that movie Amelie, which I know you like, where there's this side character who's always around, and just kind of this person who's you just keep you around, but then in the end he has the wisdom to say, so you are in love with this guy and you're avoiding him. What are you, a freaking idiot? And you're like, oh, what a dumbass I am. And you get to go.
Dickie rose to the occasion. Yeah, he rose to the occasion.
Another thing that the author has said on YouTube, he said an intro thing saying, I've read a lot of books. I read books. I like books. And so I want to learn stuff. So I've read a lot of philosophers and thinkers. And but when I think about it, which actually has made me a wiser person, if I had to choose Plato or the Odyssey, I would have to say the Odyssey has made me more wise about life and people than Plato. And Plato is literally trying to tell you, this is how you live life, or this is what's in life that is good. You should do this. And he says, yeah, so literature is, if you wonder why should I read literature, or why is it good, that's what I actually, he didn't say he thought it. He said a teacher of his said that. He said, in the end, the characters you spend time with or get to know will influence your behavior more than any instruction or lesson from some teacher. He says, so that's why we need to think and look at character and motivation and consequence.
Right. Well, the title of this book, The Rules of Civility, is based on a list of over 100 maxims and rules that George Washington received from his mother at 14, and which Tinker has in his belongings and has underlined and reread the parts so that he can learn how to play his role as a American gentleman of some wealth. But you learned more from seeing Tinker in action and how people responded to him, or seeing Kate in action and how people responded to her, than you're not. Did you read all of the 120 something rules of civility that are included in the appendix of this book? No, I don't read them.
No.
But I learned about them, I think, or what's the right way to behave by watching people behave. And I think that's true, that the narrative form makes it more interesting for us rather than the didactic form where you're just given a list of rules like Aristotle. I mean, Aristotle, it was interesting to read to see where all this comes from, but really to see those rules in action in a narrative is what's interesting. People love story.
Yeah, that's another funny thing, another kind of joke, because if that book was by George Washington, he was another kind of ancient cosplayer who he became a landed aristocrat by marrying into a super wealthy family. Then he became an enormous land speculator, buying land that he knew would double in price or whatever, and so he gained kind of political power by just being so rich. And then he decided, like, okay, now I want that military kind of gravitas. So he just started calling himself like a colonel of, whatever army or something. And he never actually did anything. I think so. And he would start showing
before the Revolutionary War, you mean?
Yeah, I think he started showing up wearing like a dark blue like uniforms, and people just like, oh, he must know something. And then,
oh wow!
And then I think once he started, now this I'm not even. I think I read this. Once that brand started taking hold, he started getting traction with that. He started training more into it. But he was another one who saw like, okay, how do I kind of get up as high as possible, and he and then his legend is just insane. Now, yeah.
Well, what it is. It's in both cases. It's what you hear all the time in this day and age. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what both of those stories are attempting. Even though Tinker abandons his plan of being a rich playboy and becomes a dock worker. And so, okay, I guess you found your true self there. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I liked the snappy repartee. I liked the fact that this was my parents' generation. And I liked a lot of the insights that the author makes about life and little emotional moments he seems to really grasp the importance of, and I could really recognize and connect with that. And I liked a lot of his metaphors, the subway and the subway photographs and honeymoon bridge. It's not the real thing, but it'll serve the purpose in the meantime. And I completely missed all of the names. I mean, I didn't even think about her name being Content, and that the fact that she is content with herself, and Tinker is just playing around. I didn't usually do. I pay a lot of attention to names normally, but I didn't this time. But I would recommend further reading of him, and I would recommend this book to anybody. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. I would say
Rules of Civility.
I'm looking at Wikipedia now. Actually, so George Washington, he did fight, in the French and Indian Wars.
Indian War?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so he answered the call when the British were struggling against their rival, the French. But I think the legend is he never actually, he was a soldier, but he wanted like leadership. He never became maybe an officer. And so that's when he started, I guess the war was over. He's like, oh, I missed my chance. So he started kind of cosplaying like, yeah, I am pretty much in a command or executive role. And so I think that's what it was, that he skipped the actual formal whatever promotion that would make him seem a serious contender for like an actual leader of an entire war, the Revolutionary War. So
interesting. I think that French and Indian War, that's Last of the Mohicans, but that also maybe was fought. Well, I guess everybody was British then, or French, and so there wasn't any American inkling going on there.
Yeah, I guess they were English citizens at the time.
Yeah.
So, let's see what's next. I got tons of books, and actually, I got one. I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna maybe cut this part of the podcast out. Let me go get the book. 1 second.
Okay. We're just waiting for Joe to come back with the book he's gonna choose in the next go round.
Okay, so I got this one because it said that it's Richard Russo. If you like this guy, you might like this guy. It's called This Is Where I Leave You. John,
I've read it.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, my next one then is to read
good.
book number 1 Casino Royale.
Oh,
The
Casino
first-
Royale. Is it Ian Fleming?
The first James Bond's book. Yep, Ian Fleming. And I've heard it's James Bond in the book is not really like his super cool movie character. He's actually, they say he's kind of like a drunk improviser where he's just like everything kind of goes his way. That's what they say. So
I've read some of the James Bond books. I don't know if I've read Casino Royale many years ago, so that would be okay. Yeah.
all right, so I choose that one.
Okay, Casino Royale.
Yep. Well, so that's gonna do it for this episode. That's a good one. I recommend it. I want to read his other ones. Lots of reviews. It's funny. People actually write this down. They go like, my mind was blown by A Gentleman in Moscow. This is not as good as that. So here's a fair warning. It's like,
Oh,
you're gonna.
I think I liked this better than Gentleman from Moscow, but a lot of people loved that. And I'm going to read The Lincoln Highway, which is his next one. And I do see, if I may be so bold, I do see this is really, really good. I think The Gentleman from Moscow is probably better, but I think he's improving all the time. I think he's really good. Any of his books would be a treat.
Yeah, I'm gonna read them.
Okay. Alrighty
right.
then.
So
All right, then this concludes the August edition of our podcast.
We will catch you next time.
Catch you next time.
And then you may never have to change partners again. Won't you change partners and dance with me?